My wife chose her family over me after they said, "It's either us or him. Decide now." She picked them and I quietly walked away, only for her to realize what she'd lost too late. I'm Michael, 33, and I used to joke that when I married Julia, I was marrying her family too. Turns out the punchline was waiting for me on a random Tuesday night. I came home from a 10-hour shift at the auto shop in Austin, smelling like motor oil and exhaustion, and found her entire clan parked on my living room furniture like they owned the lease. Her parents stiff on the sofa, her brother Kevin grinning like he'd won something, her sister scrolling but watching me through the reflection on her phone screen. "Michael, we need to talk," her mom said, the kind of tone people use right before staging an intervention. Kevin puffed out his chest and announced he was launching a family investment fund. Translation: he'd hit a couple lucky trades and now believed he was the second coming of Warren Buffett. Everyone would contribute, mandatory, of course, and they all knew I had about $60,000 saved before the wedding. "It's for the family's future," her dad pressed, like he was doing me a favor. I told them, calm as a man holding back a storm, "It's my money. I'm not gambling it on your schemes." The room erupted. Guilt trips, raised voices, accusations of selfishness. Finally her dad stood, pointed at me and declared, "Choose, Michael. You're with the family or against us." Julia's eyes filled, her voice barely a whisper. Then, "I choose them." When Julia whispered, "I choose them," something in me didn't shatter, simply realigned. Like hearing a noise in your car engine you've ignored for months suddenly click into place. You finally understand the problem isn't new. It was always there. You were just pretending it wasn't. I didn't argue, not because I was defeated, but because the moment demanded stillness, not noise. People who scream usually scream to hide the truth. People who go quiet already know it. So I walked past them. Her mother's outraged gasp, Kevin's smug half-smirk, her dad muttering something about ungrateful men, and went to our bedroom, closed the door gently, no slam. I opened my laptop, hands steady, and drafted an email. Subject: marriage issue, urgent consultation. Message: my wife chose her family over me. I need to know my options. Before I even shut the laptop, the autoresponder pinged. A consultation slot was open in 4 hours. Meanwhile, the family tribunal continued in the living room. I could hear them through the door. "He's being dramatic. He'll come around. You have to pressure him, Julia. He should be grateful to be part of this family." Grateful. That word stuck in my throat like a bone. While they planned how to fix me, I began packing. Not aggressively, not frantically, but with a methodical calm that scared even me. I took photos of the apartment for documentation. I placed Julia's belongings exactly where they were, untouched, almost museum-like. I gathered my work tools, the essentials, and a few shirts that didn't smell like machine grease. Then I messaged my buddy Carlos, who once told me, "If you ever need a couch, mine's yours." He had a spare room ready in an hour. I didn't leave a note. Notes invite discussion. I didn't need discussion. I needed distance. 3 days passed before Julia realized what had happened. She'd stayed at her parents' while they processed my refusal. I imagine they expected I'd come crawling back with a tearful apology and a check made out to Kevin's magical money fund. But when she returned to the apartment, most of my things were gone, the place half echoing. She must have walked from room to room, calling my name, waiting for me to jump out and confess this was a lesson, a tantrum, a teachable moment. Instead, all she found was the silence she'd chosen. The texts began immediately. "You can't be serious. You can't just leave. We need to talk. My parents think you're overreacting. Michael, come home so we can fix this." I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, just principle. She'd made it clear that my role was not husband, but soldier in her family's army. Foot soldier, to be specific. My lawyer responded for me, one clean message: all communication will now go through legal representatives. Julia didn't like that. She texted anyway, frantic now, "You're being manipulated by your lawyer. Why are you acting like I betrayed you? It was just an investment discussion." My family cares about you. Stop punishing me for choosing them in a moment of stress. But here's the truth she never acknowledged. Moments of stress reveal loyalty, not create it. The lawyer's next instruction was simple. No contact. Document everything. So I did. Screenshot by screenshot, I watched as her tone shifted. Concern to confusion, confusion to desperation, desperation to anger. Because when manipulative people lose control of the narrative, they panic. By day 5, she wasn't texting anymore. She was calling. 23 missed calls in a single afternoon. Then came the voicemails. A shaky apology. A frustrated accusation. A plea to just come home. A passive-aggressive reminder that marriage means compromise. Another apology. Another accusation. A cycle on repeat. Meanwhile, I was sitting in Carlos's spare room, surrounded by the hum of his old AC unit and the comforting smell of laundry detergent. Eating reheated tacos while reviewing documents with my lawyer. Peaceful. Ridiculously peaceful. And that's when the clarity reached its full shape. Julia didn't choose her family. She had always belonged to them. I was just a guest with a ring. They weren't asking for my trust. They were demanding my surrender. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt something like relief. Quiet, steady, absolute. No drama. No screaming. No heroic speeches. Just a clean, unambiguous line drawn in the sand. She chose them. So I chose me. A week after I left, things were finally settling into a rhythm. Work, paperwork, silence. Then the storm arrived wearing Kevin's smug profile picture. He posted one of those sanctimonious Facebook monologues, the kind written by people who desperately want applause. Some husbands show their true colors when money's involved. Family should come first. Greed destroys marriages. No names, but he didn't need to. Their entire social circle knew Julia's poor abandoned wife narrative. The comments rolled in fast. Proud of you for defending your sister. Some men can't handle real family bonds. Julia deserves better. No one tagged me, but I felt the heat of every implication. They wanted me to break the silence, to jump into the mud with them. I didn't. My brother Nate, however, he's allergic to hypocrisy. Nate commented, "Funny how you forgot to mention the part where you all tried to bully Michael into giving you $60,000 for your little investment fund. And how Julia chose you over her husband when told to pick sides. It was like dropping a lit match into dry grass." Kevin's friends started demanding details. Julia's cousins called Nate a liar. Kevin tried to pivot, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But screenshots of conversations were already circulating. People who'd been at Julia's parents' house that night had apparently heard enough to start whispering. The post didn't just explode. It detonated. Julia messaged me that night for the first time in days. "Can you please tell your brother to stop attacking my family? This is humiliating." I forwarded it to my lawyer. He reminded me, "No contact." So I didn't answer. 2 days later, things escalated. My lawyer called, voice tight with a kind of controlled satisfaction. "Michael, you'll want to sit down for this one." He'd received a file, anonymous, but clearly someone in Julia's circle with a conscience. The messages were a gold mine. A group chat between Julia, her parents, Kevin, and her sister. Hundreds of lines. Time-stamped, clear as day. They'd full-on rehearsed the confrontation in my living room. Assigned roles. Practiced lines. Kevin was supposed to lead the speech. Her mother would cry at minute 3. Julia would look torn but loyal to build emotional credibility. Her dad would deliver the ultimatum exactly as scripted. Even worse, they talked about my savings like vultures circling a carcass. "He has $60K saved pre-marriage. We can say it's for our future. He'll cave. Make him feel isolated. Guilt always works on him. If he resists, Julia needs to cry. He hates disappointing her. This is for our family's growth. He should contribute like everyone else." The part that hit hardest wasn't their greed. It was the certainty, this assumption that my loyalty was something they could choreograph and weaponize. One message from Julia's sister sealed everything. "We need to break him emotionally. That's the only way he'll give the money. Break him. I reread that sentence more times than I'd like to admit. Not persuade. Not discuss. Not build trust. Break. Any lingering doubt about whether I'd done the right thing evaporated like water on a hot engine. When we presented the messages to the judge during the preliminary hearing, he didn't even hide his disgust. Julia's side had filed a claim accusing me of abandonment of marital obligations and emotional cruelty. The judge flipped through their evidence. Thin statements, dramatic language, nothing objective, and then through ours. Screenshots, transcripts, video from my door camera, the messages planning my emotional ambush. He raised an eyebrow at one point and asked Julia's lawyer, "Is your client aware that coercion and financial manipulation, especially premeditated, are serious concerns in family court?" Her lawyer tried to pivot, claiming the messages were taken out of context. The judge didn't buy it. He set down the stack of papers and said, with the kind of clarity that ends all arguments, "The claims against Mr. Carter are rejected. His premarital savings remain solely his. He retains full rights to the marital apartment. And given the nature of the communications, I'm issuing a temporary no-contact order until this matter stabilizes." Julia's face fell in this quiet, stunned sort of way, not theatrical like her family would have done, but hollow, like someone watching a version of reality they thought they controlled dissolve in front of them. Her parents looked furious. Kevin looked humiliated. Her sister looked ready to chew nails. And for the first time, none of it moved me. Within 24 hours, their public image began to crumble. People who'd previously commented, "You're so strong, Kevin," and "Poor Julia," suddenly went quiet. Others began deleting their comments. A few even reached out privately with some variation of, "I'm sorry, we didn't know the full story." Kevin deleted his post entirely. Julia deactivated her account. And just like that, the family who'd always insisted they were a united, righteous front, a supportive family, as they loved to say, found themselves exposed in the one arena they valued most, social perception. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious. Just settled, centered, clean. They wanted to break me. Instead, they broke their own facade. If Julia's family had any self-awareness, they might have cut their losses and retreated after the court ruling. But people who run their lives on manipulation don't understand retreat. They only understand escalation. The first incident happened on a Thursday morning. I was leaving the auto shop, grabbing my lunch bag from my truck, when I heard footsteps coming fast behind me. Her dad, red-faced, jaw clenched, eyes wild. Like a man who'd rehearsed this moment in his head all night. "You think you can walk away from your responsibilities?" he shouted, close enough that I could smell the stale coffee on his breath. "You're destroying my daughter's life." I kept my hands visible, stayed calm. Years in the shop teach you not to react to sudden noise. You wait, assess, then respond. "Sir," I said quietly, "step back." He didn't. He jabbed a finger toward my chest, ranting about loyalty, about how a real man supports his wife's family. My supervisor stepped outside just in time. He wasn't subtle. "Leave the property now or I call the police." Her dad backed up, but not before hissing, "This isn't over." I didn't respond. I documented everything instead. The next phase of their campaign was sneakier. My building manager pulled me aside. "Someone filed a report that you're subletting your place illegally," she said, brow raised. I lived alone. Always had. The report was anonymous, of course. Then my boss called me into his office. "Mike, I need to ask. Did you take equipment from the shop? HR got a complaint." I hadn't. Never would. Another anonymous claim. Then the one that stung, not because it had merit, but because of its audacity. A police officer knocked on my door. "We received an anonymous report about potential domestic abuse." I blinked slowly. Julia and I weren't even living together. The officer took one look at my empty apartment, nodded, and wrote in his report that the claim was baseless. 3 false reports in 7 days. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. He just said, "Good. Keep them coming." They're building your case for you. But the family wasn't done. My bank called next. Mr. Carter, was that you trying to access your account from a new device? No, I said. Where was the attempt from? They read out an address. Julia's parents. It was sloppy, reckless, stupid, and exactly their style. They were convinced righteousness gave them permission to violate boundaries. I changed every password, froze unnecessary accounts, set up two-factor, reported it formally. Another strike on the record. Then came the online smear campaign. Posts from fake accounts calling me a con artist husband. Comments about how I'd emotionally abandoned a loving wife. Even accusations that I'd manipulated Julia into marriage for her family resources. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Again, I stayed silent. No Facebook wars. No defensive posts. No righteous speeches. Silence frustrates manipulators more than hostility ever could. My lawyer, meanwhile, worked like a surgeon, precise, methodical. Every screenshot, every voicemail dripping with insults, every attempted login, every false report. It all went into one growing file. He told me, they think they're building pressure on you. They're actually building a restraining order on themselves. He was right. 3 weeks later, we were back in court. The judge looked over the evidence, thick, undeniable, and issued a sweeping protective order. No contact from Julia. No contact from her parents, siblings, cousins, or family representatives. No physical approach within 300 feet. No digital contact through any medium. Julia's face crumpled. Not with remorse, but with disbelief. Her family looked like they'd been slapped by the universe itself. They weren't victims. They weren't righteous. They were documented aggressors. And then karma arrived right on schedule. Kevin's investment miracle. The thing he'd used to justify extorting his own brother-in-law collapsed. One morning, social media lit up with angry posts from people who'd invested with him. The platform froze withdrawals. Support emails bounced. The website went offline. Kevin's motivational videos vanished. Turns out his genius investment wasn't genius at all. It was a scam, a classic pump and vanish. He'd put in $20,000 of his own money. His parents added another $10,000. Julia's sister threw in $5,000. Family friends pitched in the rest. $40,000. Gone overnight. The same money they tried to shame, corner, and bully me into surrendering. Julia's mother posted a cryptic message. Sometimes betrayal comes from those we trust most. I read it while drinking coffee and felt nothing. Not schadenfreude. Not triumph. Just confirmation. They'd tried to break me financially. Instead, they broke themselves. And I didn't lift a finger. By the time the final hearing rolled around, I felt like I'd already seen the end of the movie. The paperwork, the restraining order, the public unraveling, all of it had drained whatever emotional charge I once had. I wasn't angry anymore. I was simply done. Julia and her entire clan walked into the courtroom looking like a family portrait where every smile had been erased with a Sharpie. Her dad stiff, her mom tight-lipped, Kevin pale in a way I'd never seen a man pale, and her sister glaring at the floor like it owed her an apology. Julia herself looked smaller, not physically, but in presence. She used to radiate confidence that bordered on entitlement. Now she sat with hunched shoulders, eyes darting between the judge and the table. Their lawyer, a man with the confidence of someone who'd only read the first half of the evidence file, opened strong. Your Honor, my client was emotionally pressured into siding with her family. Mr. Carter exerted control, created a hostile environment, and effectively coerced her into. The judge raised a hand. Stop! The lawyer blinked. Julia's mom gasped. Kevin leaned back like someone had pushed him. The judge reached for the stack of printed messages, the group chat, the rehearsed confrontation, the breakdown of who would cry when, the instructions on how to emotionally break me. He held them up like a piece of rotten fruit. You're claiming coercion, the judge said, voice cool and sharp. Yet these messages show your entire family planned an organized effort to manipulate Mr. Carter into surrendering his premarital savings. The lawyer stumbled. Your Honor, those chats were were private family conversations taken out of context. Context? The judge echoed. The context is clear, and it is damning. Julia's mother whispered something that sounded like, "This is unfair." The judge continued, unfazed. "There will be no alimony, no special compensation, no claims to Mr. Carter's premarital finances. His $60,000 savings remain solely his property." Julia closed her eyes, like a woman hearing a sentence she already knew was coming. As for marital assets, the judge added, the joint account will be split equally, $5,000 each. And given the documented harassment, deceit, and attempted financial coercion, the restraining order remains in effect for the next year. Her lawyer opened his mouth again. But the judge wasn't done. "Let me be perfectly clear. Your family's behavior borders on financial predation. You are fortunate this is not a criminal matter." I didn't look at Julia. I didn't need to. A lifetime of messages, echoes of past arguments, the way she'd once insisted I was part of the family. All of that felt like something that had happened to someone else, in a different life, years ago. When the gavel came down, it was like the last door of a collapsing house slamming shut. I walked out lighter, not triumphant, just free in a quiet, steady way I hadn't felt in years. Their collapse didn't happen overnight. It unspooled slowly, like a sweater caught on a nail. Julia's father, once proud to call himself a family patriarch, had to return to construction work at 68. He used to boast about retiring early. Now he clocked in before sunrise, bad knees and all, because Kevin's fake investment miracle had eaten through their savings. Her mother had to sell her car, the one she used to brag about on Facebook, to pay off the remaining debts. She began walking to her part-time receptionist job. Kevin lost not just his money, but his girlfriend. She found out he'd invested her emergency fund without telling her, packed her bags in silence, and left him staring at the door like he couldn't believe choices had consequences. Julia's sister, the one who declared they needed to break me emotionally, cut ties with all of them after they tried pressing her to contribute to a new family rebuilding fund. She posted one final message online. "I'm done being part of this circus. Figure out your own mess." Julia moved back into her childhood bedroom, the same room she'd mocked when we first dated, calling it a tomb of bad carpet and trauma. The job she landed afterward wasn't glamorous. Retail, long hours, minimum wage, no social media bragging rights. Their family dinners turned into blame sessions, each pointing fingers at each other, at me, at the world, at luck, at karma. Anything except the mirror. Word got back to me through friends and coworkers. They say it was Julia's fault for choosing the investment. They say her dad never trusted you and she should have married someone else. They say you ruined their reputation. People always say. But truth? They ruined themselves. The same family she chose over her marriage now resented her for being the match that lit their dry timber. I didn't celebrate any of it. Didn't smile at their downfall. Didn't feel vindicated. I felt distance, clarity, a kind of stillness you only earn by walking through fire without letting it burn your voice. They had tried to break me. In the end, they broke each other, and I simply stepped out of the way. 6 months passed like a long exhale I didn't know I'd been holding. My life now is simple in the best way. I wake up in my own place, sunlight on the walls, Toby snoring at my feet. I make coffee without wondering who's waiting to judge how I spend my day. At the auto shop, I moved up to lead tech, better pay, better hours, fewer headaches. Even my sleep changed. It feels deeper now, quiet all the way down. Peace has a weight to it, a good one. Then one afternoon, when the world felt almost too steady, a letter arrived. Handwritten. My name spelled out in looping cursive I knew instantly. Julia. 5 pages. Front and back. The kind of letter someone writes when they've run out of people willing to listen. She apologized, not dramatically, not manipulatively, just plainly. She wrote that she saw everything clearly now, that the family unity she'd chosen was actually a cage they'd built together, that she realized how deeply they had influenced her, how much pressure she'd allowed, how easily she'd let their voices replace her own judgment. She wrote about the bankruptcy of their investment lies, about Kevin drowning in debt and self-pity, about her mother's bitterness, about her father's exhaustion, about the crushing atmosphere of a house full of people who needed someone to blame and found her the closest target. She wrote, "You didn't abandon me, I abandoned us. And I see it now." At the very end, one final line, "If you can, please call." I held the letter for a long moment, not out of longing, but because closure sometimes comes disguised as memory. I didn't feel anger, not satisfaction either, just understanding. She made her choice loudly. I made mine quietly. The universe handled the rest. I smiled once. A small, honest smile. Folded the letter and tore it down the middle, then into quarters, then smaller. Soft paper in my hands, dissolving the last thread between us. Not revenge, not spite, just acknowledgement that some doors should remain closed for your own good. Julia is still living in the house she sacrificed our marriage for, surrounded by the people she fought so hard to defend, now blaming her for the fallout of their own hands. And me? I'm living in a home where every inch is mine. My dog's tail thumps against the couch when I walk in. The quiet isn't threatening anymore. It's earned, solid. When people talk about revenge, they imagine flames and confrontation. But real revenge isn't fire. It's water, patient, steady, cleansing. It's living a life untouched by the chaos someone once dragged you into. A life they can't enter. A peace they can't reclaim. In the end, karma didn't show up as lightning. Came as consequences. And peace, the kind I have now, is the one thing they cannot take back.